ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to return I normally say I'm going to return the podium to adult supervision, but that's not true because I'm bringing Don Marinelli up. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Don Marinelli. Woo!
I can't wait to hear what this guy's got to say with that build-up. It's a pleasure to be back here. We are going to have a very busy hour. I don't know if you realize the photos that Thornton was showing you at the beginning of his introduction. A lot of color, images of airplanes. Do you realize those were the images created in the 1930s by the Italian futurists in Italy? They were futurists because they knew that technology was going to change the nature of being human. And in fact, those images you saw were from a genre called, in Italian, aero-pittura, aerial painting. They literally believed that the advent of flight, that the advent of the airplane would so fundamentally change the human because of the perspective it applied. And it's sometimes difficult for us to realize that in the 1930s, Italy was the leading aviation country in the world because they embraced the airplane in ways never before. I spent the weekend in New Orleans at the World War II Air Power Expo. There they had the old New Orleans Municipal Terminal, beautiful Art Deco. And inside there was a mural of the 1933 flight by Italo Balbo of 33 Caproni seaplanes from Italy to Lake Michigan, where they taxied up onto the shores of the World's Fair. And no less than the New York Times hailed Italy as the leader of aviation. And all of this came about from what? A group called the Italian Futurists. Why is this important to me? That was my doctoral dissertation, was on the Italian Futurists. And it's funny because I'm here now precisely for that reason, to discuss the present and how the present is going to transform into the future and how your livelihoods and your legacy will depend upon that. How many of you were here last year when I presented? Very good. We're going to review slightly what I did and then build upon it. For those of you who weren't here, who am I? I'm a recovering academic. Started out as an actor and have remained an actor my entire life, but realized that the best acting occurs in a classroom. Because why, in fact, did I want to become an actor? I wanted to become an actor so I could impact an audience. Well, guess what? There's no greater audience to impact than young people who are entrusted to you. I started out as a drama professor at Carnegie Mellon University. But then in the mid-90s, something happened. It was a disruptive technology. It was called video games. We would travel around the country auditioning young people who wanted to become actors. And I noticed something very peculiar in the mid-90s, and that is I sensed that they weren't interested in the art form that they were auditioning for. And I don't even remember the city where it happened. But I sat there once with a group of young people, parents, and I said, let's have a little honesty here. It's Friday night. Money is no object. How many of you, on your own volition, will go see live theater? Maybe 30% of the hands went up. Okay? What disruption? They're auditioning for the oldest school of drama in America, one of the most famous, and 2/3 of them have no interest in the art form. I said, okay. How many of you on that Friday night would go to the cinema? More hands went up. And then I broached the subject. How many of you would prefer to order 2 supreme pizzas from Domino's, get a case of beer, and sit with your friends in your living room playing video games? And practically every hand went up. Well, I went back to the faculty at the School of Drama and I said, a tremendous opportunity is presenting itself. There's this new technology that is creating a new form of engagement and interaction. It's called video games. And we have this distinct opportunity to be on the bleeding edge of this. Because 50 years ago, there was a new technology, and it was called television. And what did the School of Drama say back then? Back! We don't want that stinking television here. And I knew something was weird because what's one of the job of an administrators? Go find money. And the only people we could approach who had any money were TV stars. And so literally we were like biting the hand that feeds us. So when I said, why don't we go into the realm of video games? And they said no, I had to disrupt my own life. So I stepped down as the associate head of drama, and I did something unheard of. I walked over to the School of Computer Science. At Carnegie Mellon, they are in the ugliest building ever made. It looks like the Fuhrer bunker. But it is so ugly, even the Fuhrer would not be caught dead in this building. I walked into this building, I saw young people who had not been outside in so long, their skin had become translucent. And here I am, a drama professor, going in there, asking them, is there any room in your sandbox for a drama professor? I fully expected them to laugh in my face, hound me out the door. Worse yet, I feared they were going to give me a math test. So imagine my surprise when the response was, Don, we would be honored to have you join us. You bring a mind and skill set we don't have. You would accentuate the technology that we build by bringing the humanity to it. And I thought, son of a gun. Because if someone from technology had come into the School of Drama and said, I'm from computer science, and you can always tell a geek because they look at their shoes when they talk. I'm from computer science, and I'm here to introduce technology for you. Or frankly, if they're a gregarious computer scientist, they look at your shoes. If that sucker had come in, we would have cut his head off, put it on a pike outside the theater, and said, give up all hope, ye who enter here. And thus began my career in computer science. And I teamed up with this man who would become the most famous computer scientist of all time, Randy Pausch. How many of you recall about 5-6 years ago, the last lecture? That was my buddy, Randy. And he and I became a right brain, left brain dynamic, creating the Entertainment Technology Center. But my interest in aviation goes further back than that. I once had short hair. I enlisted. This is important because in America today, do you realize 1% of the population has done service for this country? 1%. Not since Rome have we had this sort of divergence. How much do I love aviation? I spent the weekend at the World War II Air Power show in New Orleans. I got to fly a B-29 Fifi from Baton Rouge to Louisiana. And something significant for all of us, I said that I have to go with my buddy, Carnegie Mellon. Because the last time Carnegie was in a B-29 was in December of 1944 when the plane disintegrated underneath him because a colonel insisted that the bombs be loaded a certain way, even though the bombardier said, sir, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. But they did it, dropped the bomb load. 10 of 11 B-29s were blown out of the sky. Carnegie was blown out of the bomb bay, parachuted out, parachute strap broke, landed head down on a rice paddy to become a Japanese POW. Despite that, when he saw the B-29, he started to cry. And he said, I love that plane. I absolutely love that plane. In fact, there was an AP article that said, greatest generation takes flight again. And I teared up because I said to my friends, I was on that flight. And I'm not the greatest generation. I was on that flight. So what are we going to do here today, folks? We're going to talk about your students of the future. Who are they? What are they? Why are they? And most importantly, the takeaway is how we are going to teach them. One of the joys of being a professor is that each year, when the new year begins, I'm 1 year older and they're still 17. And that gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which usually means that I find myself as an anthropologist trying to figure out, who are they? Who are these kids? And not only who are these kids, but who will you be teaching? There's 4 large quadrants of demographics. We've got the boomers, we got the matures, we got the greatest generation basically, the boomers, the Gen Xers, and the millennials. Guess what? This is shrinking fast. Youngest World War II vet last weekend was 89 years old. We're the boomers. I'll be 62. We're shrinking. Gen X, shrinking. Millennials, and more importantly, digital natives are growing. Let's take a look at some specifics. When we say millennials, what are we talking about? We're talking about young people basically born between 78 and 94. I am the father of a millennial. When we talk about Generation Z, these are digital natives. Once upon a time, they were kids. But now when we start looking at the 1990s, you realize these kids are now entering college, which means they're also in the Civil Air Patrol, which means what? That pretty soon you should be going after them. Or even more importantly, they should be coming after you. And then the toddlers of today, the young people of today, are called the plurals. Why are they called the plurals? Because they are the first truly right brain, left brain individuals. You know what? Later on this evening, you're going to meet one of the original right brain, left brain individuals. His name was Leonardo da Vinci. How many of us wish our kids could be Leonardo da Vinci? Practically all of us. And what are we seeing? That the youngest generation that is coming up may actually possess or not possess the barriers that we have applied to right brain, left brain, that false division, that false bifurcation that has allowed whole generation to say, no, I'm just a geek. No, I'm just an artist, when nothing could be further from the truth. What are the numbers we're talking about? The numbers are gigantic. Millennials alone in the United States comprise 83 million inhabitants. If we add the digital natives, ladies and gentlemen, we add another 80 plus million. What does that mean? That means by 2016, over half of the United States will be comprised of digital natives. People who have grown up with technology as literally being part of who they are. That technology is now part of the human ontology. What do we mean by ontology? Logos, study of, ontos, being. That technology is part of who they are. Here's some good news for all of you here in Texas and thereabouts. Where are they? If you see red, there's an above average percentage of digital natives. If you see orange or mustard yellow, that is an average proportion. And if you see blue, you're probably either living in Florida or you're a survivalist. Now, Thornton, I know you're from Maine, and Maine's blue, but you're wearing a goddamn bow tie. I mean, come on. I mean, I know we're here to talk about the red, but it's hard not to be fascinated by the blue. You're like, Florida, Florida. It's true. Pittsburgh. You realize I live in a county that is second only to Broward County in the number of senior citizens? That's kind of frightening, especially when you're one of them. So we talk about these millennials, we basically talk about the demographic you are currently not reaching, and how do we define them? We define them very simply as they are technologically immersed. I don't know about you, but if you go in that room, you are immersed in technology. Bingo, that should be like a natural attraction. They have extremely high expectations. I mean, frankly, I love them because I'm an aging hippie, all right? And I'm one of the few that tried to maintain that optimism of the 60s. Most of my generation sold out. They gave up. I still remember Frank Zappa's song, Brown Shoes Don't Make It. But these kids are who I thought I was going to be. And they're diverse in thought. They're diverse in many different ways. Folks, don't take this the wrong way, but diversity is not a description I would have of this audience. It ain't there. In fact, this reminds me of a Sunday matinee in the theater where there was enough peroxide in the house that if you were to light a match, it would explode. How do they think of themselves? What does a millennial describe him or herself as? Number one term that they have used is they consider themselves to be extremely friendly. Secondly, they consider themselves to be open-minded. Third, they consider themselves to be intelligent. And not just intelligent in terms of what they know, but intelligent because they know how to find what they don't know. I mean, I could go on a whole riff about how humankind has evolved to the point where we are, in fact, deistic. What do I mean by deistic? We are now, through technology, creating the attributes that previous societies have always attributed to gods. You want to be omniscient? It's called Wikipedia. You have a question? Ask Siri. We are omnipresent. We are there all the time. We start to feel omnipotent, but that's a philosophic discussion for another time. How else do they describe themselves? As being responsible, thoughtful, caring, fun-loving, independent, creative, curious. They've got very positive attributes that they attribute to who they are. Now, who they are is different than who we think they are. First of all, they are the most multi-ethnic and multiculturally diverse group we've ever had. How so? Look at this chart. If you're an adult age 30 or older, 71% of the population is white. If you're under 30, that drops to 61%, with a significant increase in Hispanics and in the African American community. Guess what? This is going to skew even more to the point where in the United States, white will become a minority within 20, 30 years. This is a very white audience. We have got to reach out for the safe, not just for general aviation, for our country as a whole. What are the other attributes of this generation that we need to deal with? Face it, folks, they have an extremely altered perception of time, space, and identity. I love this slide, weapons of mass distraction. We can basically laugh at the young people, but who are we kidding? How many of you right now are having cell phone withdrawal? I mean, clearly there's a message that you must get. I mean, they're calling you. We're suffering from that as well. So do we have the dreaded disease, ADD? Do we have attention deficit disorder? Or in fact, do we find ourselves drawn into the fact that there is so much knowledge, information, contact that is out there for us that we want to be part of? Because I don't know about you, but I know my clock is ticking. I'm on the downward slope. I want to get as much out of life as I possibly can. before I'm in a walker. So when we take a look at them and we say, oh, they've all got ADD, that's not the case. They're eager. They all have a attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. No, they don't. They want action. They want to see the results of their decisions made. And what better place for that to occur than the cockpit? What better place for that to occur than realizing that you have a machine that is at your beck and call that you need to become symbiotic with, and within that you are immersed within the world, the nature around us. Everything about that says general aviation should be their sweet spot. And yet, what will I tell you? On Saturday in New Orleans at the World War II Air Power Expo, they calculated 6,000 people going through the turnstiles. Every flight on the B-29 was sold out. The Bombardier seat was $1,600. The P-51 Mustang with tandem seat, that sucker went for $2,000 a pop. It was sold out. There was not one flight school at that event. Not one. That's called wasted opportunity. What else can we tell from their love of technology? They're like a beacon, tweeting out where they are, what they are doing for their cohorts, their friends to see. Why do they want to be liked? Who the hell doesn't want to be liked? And the fact of the matter is, how are we older folks, how do we even know we're liked? I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'm still waiting for Christmas cards. My wife and I love to take cruises. We're on a cruise ship. I'm writing postcards. You know how many people coming up going, that is so quaint. That's so quaint. Will you mail this? No, I'm just completely freaking bored. I just want to write in a square. This is my form of contact. I mean, I love this. But it's through all this that they learn. I mean, Thornton talked about disruption. Ladies and gentlemen, has there been any greater disruption caused by technology than the disruption of the family? Than the family. In fact, if there's I would feel just as good if the takeaway from my session with you was a better understanding of your children and maybe your grandchildren than it is how do we apply this to general aviation. I've had more instances where when I'm done with a talk, someone comes up and says, so you mean my kid's not a loser? And I'm like, a loser? A loser? This kid's freaking genius. You're probably sitting on a genius, for God's sakes. What did Einstein say when asked for a simple definition of relativity? What you see depends upon your point of view. You're going to need to change your point of view. You don't have to change it. You can die. You can become irrelevant. You know how many faculty members at school are like, I got 3 more years and then I'm out of here. But I always put myself in the shoes of the 17-year-old because I was a disruptive force in the class. And how many of them wanted me to go away? How many of them thought that what I was into was a life-changing event? Young faculty member Don comes home, sits down at the dinner table, says to the wife, I got this one pain in the ass in the class. No matter what I say, he's got to challenge it. If I say white, he's going to say black. If I say yes, he's going to say no. And I'm going on this rant, and she doesn't say a word. Finally, I go, okay, what's going on? What's going on? She said, you know that pain in the ass you're talking about? Yes. He sounds just like you. You want shock? That was shock and awe. And I thought, son of a gun, it's invasion of the body snatchers. They're trying to take over my body. I must fight this. When millennials were asked, what makes your generation unique? The number one thing they said was technology usage. Now remember, these are the millennials. These are still basically evolving from the amphibians that my generation were into the digital natives. If we were now to ask digital natives, more than likely they would say 50%. who I am is connected to my devices. And when we talk about technology, folks, what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that they live in multiple realities. They live in an alternate reality. They live in an augmented reality, a virtual reality, and a corporeal reality. And what is the great thing about virtual reality? An experience that is real in effect, but not in fact. What do you think flight sim is? It's an experience that is real in effect, but not in fact. What's your job? To connect the effect to the fact. You've done so well in the simulator, now let's go up. Now let's get in here. Now let's take it up. Now let's have your decisions really have added impact and added weight. Because, folks, these are kids who grew up with massively multiplayer online games. The Sims. You talk about flight sim, that's nothing compared to the market for The Sims. The Sims is the largest selling video game of all time. There are complete communities that are trying out life through The Sims. I consult for UCLA. UCLA Theater, Film, and Television did not know that for the last 2 years, there has been a League of Legends convention at the Staples Center that has sold out 18,000 seats every day for young people to come in and watch the cream of the crop play League of Legends. When I told them this, they were like, huh? And my reaction is, it's your backyard. It's in your backyard. When are we going to have a similar League of Legends on Flight Sim? Actually, Jerry in Migration has started to do that. What I'm saying is, you know what the next step is? We're going to sell tickets. If it's going to be World War II Flight Sim, I don't care. Come on in here and experience, even vicariously, the thrill of flight. I mean, if people are going to buy tickets, serious tickets, and support their favorite players to play League of Legends, come on, the door is open. Let's do that next. The other reality is, what do they play? They play what are called God games. They play God games where they have incredible authority, where they have incredible responsibility. And what do we say? One of the few professions where you need to be perfect all the time? Pilot and neurosurgeon. So if you're interested in a God game where you want that sort of authority, where you want that impetus to do it right, then damn it, this is the perfect place to do it. If we're talking about what technology they use, Android wins. No matter how many Apple commercials you see, Android wins.